I learned something about silence that day. It's not empty. It's not passive. Silence can be a scalpel. Precise, surgical, devastating. And on the afternoon of October 14th, standing in the parking lot of Summit Dental Clinic with a crumpled lottery ticket in my pocket worth $50 million, I discovered that silence could also be a fortress. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment before everything shattered and reformed into something I barely recognized. To the version of me who still believed in the life we'd built, even as the foundation crumbled beneath my feet. The ticket was in my jacket pocket. I'd checked it 7 times at the convenience store, my hands shaking so badly the clerk asked if I needed to sit down. 7 times. Each time the number stared back at me with the same impossible certainty. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. Powerball. 10. $50 million. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like a language I'd never learned to speak. Adrian Cole, 38 years old, stay-at-home dad, occasional freelance graphic designer, keeper of grocery lists and bedtime routines, suddenly, inexplicably, a multi-millionaire. If you've ever had a moment that splits your life into before and after, you know that strange sensation of existing in 2 timelines simultaneously. In one, I was still the guy who clipped coupons and bought store-brand cereal. In the other, I was someone who would never worry about money again. I chose to tell Celine first. Not my mother, not my best friend Marcus Celine. My wife of 12 years, mother of my daughter, the woman who'd built Summit Dental from nothing into one of the most successful practices in the city. She deserved to know first. We'd talk about financial advisors, trusts for Mila, maybe finally taking that trip to New Zealand she'd always wanted. The October sun was sharp and cold as I drove to her clinic, the ticket burning a hole through my consciousness. I rehearsed the words. Celine, something incredible happened. You need to sit down. Or maybe. Remember that lottery ticket I bought at Murphy's last week? Well, I parked in the visitor section, never the reserved spots. The clinic always smelled like mint and antiseptic, a combination I'd come to associate with Celine's ambition. She'd opened Summit 5 years ago with a business partner, Jonas Ward, though he'd left 2 years back, under circumstances Celine never fully explained. She'd said, her tone suggesting the topic was closed. The receptionist, a young woman named Bree, smiled at me. Hey, Adrian. Dr. Cole's in her office. She's with someone, but I think they're wrapping up. I can wait, I said, already moving toward the hallway. Actually, Bree started, but I was already past her desk, too excited to register the note of warning in her voice. Celine's office was at the end of the hallway, past the treatment rooms and the staff lounge. The door was closed, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the low murmur of voices Celine's, and another I recognized but couldn't immediately place. I raised my hand to knock, and then I heard my name. Adrian's such a fucking loser. Celine's voice. Clear, contemptuous, laced with laughter. My hand froze mid-air. I mean, I knew what I was signing up for, she continued. Sweet guy, good with Mila, but Jesus Christ. Rylan. 12 years. And what does he have to show for it? Some freelance design work that brings in what? $2,000 a month? Maybe? Rylan Voss, the pharmaceutical rep who'd been stopping by the clinic for the past 6 months. Always too friendly, always staying too long. I'd met him twice, both times briefly. Tall, expensive suits. The kind of smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. I should have walked away. Should have announced myself. Confronted them. Done literally anything except what I did, which was stand there, my hand still raised, my heart turning to ice in my chest. You're too good for him, Rylan said. His voice was smooth, assured. You've always been too good for him. I know, Celine laughed, but there was an edge to it. That's why we're doing this. The debt scheme is perfect. I have Darren setting it up now. He'll create invoices showing Summit owes nearly $500,000 to a shell corporation for equipment upgrades. On paper, it'll look like the business is underwater. And then I file for divorce, citing the financial strain. Adrian gets nothing. The house is in my name, the cars, everything. I'll claim I need full custody of Mila because he can't provide a stable environment. He'll be lucky if I let him have supervised visits. The hallway tilted. I pressed my hand against the wall. What about the prenup? Rylan asked. Ironclad. He signed it before we got married, back when he still had that naive, love conquers all mentality. In case of divorce, assets are divided based on financial contribution. Since he's contributed exactly nothing to Summit and we keep separate accounts, he walks away with whatever he brought in, which is nothing. You're brilliant, Rylan said, his voice dropping lower. There was a pause. A rustle of fabric. I didn't need to see through the door to know what was happening. I'll miss having a live-in nanny, Celine said, and they both laughed. But I suppose that's what child support is for. Not that he'll be able to pay much. When are you doing it? Soon. Maybe after the holidays. I don't want Mila's Christmas ruined. January. Probably. New year. New life. And we can finally stop sneaking around. And we can finally stop sneaking around, Celine echoed. More rustling. A low murmur I couldn't make out. I walked away. The parking lot was empty and infinite. I sat in my car, our car, Celine's car, technically, and stared at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't excitement. It was something else entirely. Something that started in my chest and radiated outward until I felt like I might shatter into 1,000 pieces right there in the driver's seat. Adrian's such a fucking loser. The words replayed in an endless loop. Not in the heat of an argument. Not in a moment of frustration. Casual. Conversational. The way you might comment on the weather. I thought about 12 years of marriage. I thought about Mila, 7 years old, gap-toothed and brilliant, who'd asked me that morning if clouds were made of marshmallows. I thought about the thousands of small moments that had built our life together. Grocery shopping, school pickups, folding laundry while Celine worked late. I thought I'd been building something. Turns out I'd been building a cage. The lottery ticket was still in my pocket. $50 million. 36 after taxes, probably. If I told Celine now, what would happen? She'd pretend to be thrilled. She'd kiss me, call me lucky, start making plans, and then, quietly, methodically, she'd find a way to take it all. The fake debt scheme, the divorce, the custody battle, everything she'd just outlined would still happen. I pulled out my phone, stared at Celine's contact photo, a picture from our honeymoon in Santorini, her smile radiant against the blue-white buildings. That woman felt like a stranger now. I could confront her. Storm back inside. Throw open the office door. Demand an explanation. Or I could stay silent. The idea arrived fully formed, like it had been waiting in the wings of my consciousness for exactly this moment. What if I didn't tell her? What if I claimed the ticket quietly, set everything up in secret, and watched as her plan unfolded? What if, instead of reacting, I planned? Revenge is supposed to be hot, immediate, explosive. But sitting there in the parking lot, I discovered something else. Revenge could be patient. Revenge could be architectural. Revenge could wait. I started the car and drove to my mother's house. Lydia Cole lived in a small craftsman bungalow on the east side of the city. Surrounded by rose bushes she tended with the same fierce precision she brought to everything in her life. She'd raised me alone after my father died when I was 8, working 2 jobs and somehow still finding time to make sure I did my homework and ate vegetables. She opened the door before I could knock, her expression shifting from pleasure to concern in the space of a heartbeat. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She stepped aside, ushering me into the familiar warmth of her living room. The house smelled like coffee and old books, a scent that had meant safety my entire life. "Talk to me." I sat on the couch where I'd spent countless childhood afternoons and pulled out the lottery ticket. I won, I said simply. Lydia took the ticket, her reading glasses already around her neck. She examined it carefully, then looked up at me. 50 million? 36 after taxes. Adrian. Her voice was careful. This is extraordinary. Does Celine know? No. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. And I'm not going to tell her. Why not? So I told her. Everything. The conversation I'd overheard, Celine's plan, Rylan, the fake debt scheme, the custody battle. My mother listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each sentence. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then, that absolute bitch. I'd heard my mother curse maybe 5 times in my entire life. Somehow, that broke something loose in my chest, and I laughed a harsh, broken sound that might have been a sob. Adrian. Listen to me. Lydia leaned forward, gripping my hands. You're going to do exactly what you just said. You're going to stay silent, and we're going to claim this ticket together. Together? I'll claim it. Publicly. We'll set up a trust, properly structured, everything clean and legal. The money will be protected from Celine, from anyone. You'll have access to it, but your name won't be anywhere near the public record. She'll never know. Mom, no. Her voice was steel. I've watched you sacrifice for that woman for years. I've bitten my tongue while she treated you like hired help instead of a partner. You took care of Mila. You supported her career. You made yourself smaller so she could be bigger. And this is how she repays you? She stood, pacing. And you're going to make damn sure that when Celine's little scheme falls apart, she has no one to blame but herself. I looked at my mother, 5'3", 64 years old, fury radiating from her like heat. Okay, I said. Okay. We spent the next 3 hours planning. Lydia would claim the ticket first thing Monday morning. We'd hire a financial lawyer she knew. Someone discreet. The money would go into a trust with Lydia as the primary beneficiary and me as a protected secondary. Celine would know that Lydia had won the lottery. Everyone would. It was impossible to keep that completely quiet, but there would be no legal connection to me. And in the meantime? Lydia asked. In the meantime, I said slowly. I go home. I act normal. I play the role she thinks I'm playing. Can you do that? I thought about Mila. About the custody battle Celine was planning. The way she'd use our daughter as leverage. About every small humiliation I'd swallowed. Every time I'd made myself smaller to fit into Celine's vision of what our life should be. Yes, I said. I can do that. That night, I made dinner. Like always. Pasta primavera, Mila's favorite. She burst through the door at 6:15, still in her school uniform, backpack trailing behind her like a comet's tail. Daddy! She launched herself at me, and I caught her. She launched herself at me. She launched herself at me, and I caught her, breathing in the scent of her apple shampoo and playground dirt and something ineffably Mila. Hey, Bug. How was school? Emily brought her hamster for show and tell, and it escaped, and Miss Peterson screamed, and it was so funny. She paused for breath. Can I have a hamster? We'll see. That means no. She sighed dramatically, too wise for 7. Where's Mom? Working late. The lie came easily. She'll be home for bedtime. Celine arrived at 8, kissing Mila's forehead and barely glancing at me. Long day, she said, heading straight for the wine fridge. I made pasta, I offered. I can heat some up. I ate at the clinic. She poured herself a generous glass of Pinot Noir, her movements sharp with fatigue or maybe guilt, though she hid it well. Mila, in bed? Reading. She wants to show you her spelling test. She got 100%. I'll go up in a minute. Celine leaned against the counter, studying me over the rim of her glass. You seemed quiet tonight. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice level. Tired, I guess. Mila had a lot of energy today. She took another sip. Did you call about that design project? The one for Marcus's company? Not yet. I'll do it tomorrow. Adrian. Her voice carried that familiar edge of impatience. You need to bring in more income. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this. The irony was so sharp I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. I know. I'm working on it. Work harder. She finished her wine and set the glass down with a definitive clink. I'm going up to say goodnight to Mila. Right? I'm going up to say goodnight to Mila. I watched her go, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor of her house. When I heard her voice upstairs, soft and warm as she talked to our daughter, I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep myself steady. Two versions of Celine. The mother who read bedtime stories and braided Mila's hair. The woman who called me a fucking loser and planned to take everything. Both real. Both true. The silence I'd chosen felt heavier than I'd expected. But I wore it anyway. Like armor. Monday morning, Lydia claimed the ticket. I watched the news conference on my phone, sitting in my car outside Mila's school after drop-off. My mother stood at a podium, wearing her best dress. Cameras flashing, looking simultaneously overwhelmed and quietly triumphant. I've been playing the lottery for 30 years, she told the assembled reporters. Same numbers every week, my late husband's birthday, our anniversary, the day Adrian was born. I never expected to actually win. What will you do with the money? Someone called out. Take care of my family, Lydia said simply. Make sure my son and granddaughter are secure. Maybe finally fix my roof. The reporters laughed. I turned off my phone and drove home. The first text from Selene arrived 20 minutes later. Did you see? Your mother won the lottery. Call me. I waited an hour before responding. Just saw. Crazy, right? She says she's going to help us out. Celine. How much? Me. She didn't say exactly. Wants to set up a college fund for Mila. Maybe help with some expenses. Celine. We should take her to dinner. Celebrate. I stared at that message for a long time, at the carefully calculated enthusiasm, the mercenary warmth. Then I replied, good idea. I'll ask her about her schedule. The dinner happened 3 days later at Celine's favorite restaurant, an expensive Italian place downtown where the servers knew her by name. Lydia played her part perfectly. Gracious, modest, deflecting questions about the exact amount she'd won. These things come with so much responsibility, she said, sipping her wine. I'm setting up trusts, talking to financial advisors. I want to make sure it's managed properly. Of course, Selene said, her smile bright and predatory. If you need any recommendations, I know several excellent financial planners. I'm sure you do, dear. Under the table, Lydia's hand found mine and squeezed. Selene spent the rest of dinner talking about Summit, about expansion plans, about how successful the practice had become. She didn't mention fake debts or divorce schemes. She didn't mention Rylan. She was the perfect wife, the successful professional, the devoted mother, and I played my part too. The supportive husband, the grateful son, the man who'd been gifted an unexpected windfall through his mother's luck, the man who had no idea what was coming. November arrived with early snow. Celine became increasingly demanding, her requests taking on a sharper edge. She started asking me to help out more at the clinic. Just filing. Basic administrative stuff. Framing it as an opportunity for me to contribute. You could be more involved, she said one morning, her voice carrying that particular tone of manufactured patience. It's our business, Adrian. You should understand how it works. Our business. The pronoun was a lie, but I nodded. Sure, Whatever you need. So I started spending 3 afternoons a week at Summit Dental, organizing files in the cramped records room, while Celine saw patients and Rylan stopped by with increasing frequency. He'd wave at me sometimes, that 1,000-watt smile never wavering. I'd wave back. Adrian's such a fucking loser. The staff treated me with a mix of pity and dismissal. I was Dr. Cole's husband, the stay-at-home dad, filling in because they were short-staffed, hovering at the margins of their professional world. Bree at reception was kind, offering me coffee and making small talk. But the others, the hygienists, the office manager Darren, who I now knew was helping Celine with her fake debt scheme, even Celine's own staff, they looked through me, more than at me. I filed. I organized. I made copies. And I watched. Summit Dental was impressive, I had to admit. State-of-the-art equipment. A client base that included local celebrities and business executives. A waiting room that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby than a medical office. Celine had built something real here. Something valuable. She'd also built something corrupt. It started with small observations, invoices that didn't quite match up. I didn't know enough about dental practice finances to understand exactly what I was seeing, but I knew something was off. The records room had a window that looked out onto the parking lot. On a Tuesday afternoon in mid-November, I watched Celine and Rylan meet next to his car. They stood close. Too close. Her hand on his chest. I. They weren't kissing, they were too smart for that in broad daylight, but the intimacy was unmistakable. I took a picture, not because I needed evidence of the affair, I already had that conversation burned into my memory, but because documentation was power. I was learning that. The pivotal moment came in early December, in the most unexpected way. I was filing patient records, a task that was both mind-numbing and oddly meditative, when the door to the records room opened. I looked up, expecting Bree, or maybe one of the hygienists. Instead, I found Clarissa Nguyen. Clarissa was Summit's head accountant, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd been with the practice since Jonas Ward's time. She kept to herself mostly, arriving early and leaving late. Her office a fortress of spreadsheets and tax documents. Adrian, she said, glancing over her shoulder before closing the door behind her. Do you have a minute? Of course. I set down the files. Is something wrong? She studied me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, how much do you know about Summit's finances? My pulse quickened. Not much. Celine doesn't really discuss the business side with me. No, Clarissa said slowly. I don't imagine she does. She moved closer, lowering her voice. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you aware of any irregularities in how this practice is being run? Are you aware of any irregularities? This was a test. I could feel it. One wrong word, and whatever door Clarissa was opening would slam shut. I've noticed some things, I said carefully. Invoices that seem inconsistent, but I don't know enough to say for sure. Clarissa nodded, as if I'd confirmed something she'd already suspected. I've been with this practice for 7 years. I was here when Dr. Ward left, and I know why he left, even though the official story was creative differences. Why did he leave? Because he discovered that Selene was cooking the books, underreporting income, hiding assets, creating false expenses to avoid taxes. Jonas confronted her. She bought him out, and he left rather than risk his license by staying. She paused. I stayed because I needed the job, and because I convinced myself that maybe I was wrong, that maybe I'd misread the situation. But you weren't wrong. No. Her voice was grim. I wasn't. It's gotten worse since Jonas left. Much worse. Celine's not just avoiding taxes anymore, she's actively committing fraud. And now she's setting up this fake debt scheme with Darren. creating a paper trail to make Summit look insolvent when it's actually thriving. Why are you telling me this? Clarissa's expression softened slightly. Because I've watched you these past few weeks. I've seen how she treats you like staff, like someone beneath her. And I've heard rumors about a divorce, about custody issues. If you're going to need evidence, you should know it exists. And you should know that I'm willing to help you get it. The records room suddenly felt very small. Why would you help me? Because what Celine is doing is wrong. Legally, ethically, morally wrong. And because Jonas Ward was a good man who got pushed out of his own practice for trying to do the right thing, someone needs to stop her. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. This has copies of everything. The real financial records, the proof of tax fraud, documentation of the fake debt scheme, all of it. But it's encrypted, and I'm not giving you the password unless you promise me something. What? That you'll use it. That you won't just sit on this information because confrontation makes you uncomfortable, or because you think you can fix your marriage, or because you're afraid. If I give you this, you have to promise me that you'll actually do something with it. I thought about Mila, about Celine's plan to take full custody, to paint me as an unfit father, to erase me from my daughter's life except for supervised visits. I thought about my mother's fierce protectiveness, about the lottery money hidden in trust, about the 50 million reasons Celine would destroy me if she ever found out. I promise, I said. Clarissa handed me the flash drive. The password is Summit Breach 2024. Memorize it, don't write it down. Everything you need is in there. 5 years of records. Use it wisely. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Jonas Ward didn't just leave quietly. He's been building his own practice, slowly and carefully. He's good, Adrian. Better than Celine, if I'm honest. If you wanted to make things difficult for her professionally, he might be someone worth talking to. She left before I could respond. I stood in the records room for a long time, the flash drive heavy in my pocket, next to the memory of a lottery ticket I'd won 2 months ago. Tools. I was gathering tools, and slowly, carefully, I was learning how to use them. That night, after Mila was asleep and Celine was working in her home office, I sat in my car in our driveway and examined the flash drive. The streetlight cast everything in amber. Inside the house, I could see Celine's silhouette through the window, bent over her laptop, probably answering emails or reviewing patient charts. She looked dedicated, professional, the very picture of a successful doctor building her empire. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and entered the password. The files bloomed across my screen like evidence at a crime scene. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, email chains, years of careful fraud, documented in excruciating detail. Celine had been systematically underreporting income since shortly after Jonas left, funneling money into offshore accounts, creating fake vendor invoices to reduce her taxable profit. The numbers were staggering. She'd hidden nearly $2 million over 5 years. The fake debt scheme was laid out in an email chain between Celine and Darren. They'd created a shell company called MediEquip Solutions that would bill Summit for nearly $500,000 in equipment that didn't exist. The invoices were already drafted, backdated to look like accumulated debt. The plan was to discover this debt in January, claim the business was failing, and use it as leverage in the divorce. There were other things too. Patient billing irregularities, insurance fraud, the kind of violations that didn't just mean financial penalties, they meant license revocation, possible jail time. Celine had built her success on a foundation of lies, and I had proof of all of it. I ejected the flash drive and sat in the dark, my laptop screen casting pale light across my face. This was power. This was leverage. This was the ability to destroy Celine's career, her reputation, everything she'd built. But I didn't want destruction for its own sake. I wanted something else, something quieter, more permanent. I wanted justice. I wanted Mila protected, and I wanted Celine to understand, truly understand, what it felt like to be underestimated. I started the car and drove to the 24-hour diner on Route 7, the one with Wi-Fi and weak coffee and waitresses who didn't ask questions. I ordered a coffee I wouldn't drink and spent the next 3 hours researching. Jonas Ward had indeed started his own practice, Horizon Dental, located on the west side of the city. The website was professional but modest, nothing like Summit's polished branding. Dr. Jonas Ward, DDS, 15 years of experience, specializing in comprehensive family dentistry. Patient reviews praised his skill, his kindness, his integrity. I found his email address on the contact page. For a long time, I stared at the blank message window. Once I sent this email, there was no going back. I'd be actively working against Celine. Not just defending myself, but she'd fired the first shot. She'd planned to destroy me months before I ever overheard that conversation. All I was doing was evening the field. I started typing. Dr. Ward, my name is Adrian Cole. I'm married to Dr. Celine Cole of Summit Dental. I believe you used to be her business partner. I have information that I think you should know about why your partnership ended and what's been happening at Summit since you left. I also have a business proposition that might interest you. If you're willing to meet, I'd like to discuss how we might be able to help each other. Best, Adrian. I hit send before I could reconsider. Then I drove home, climbed into bed next to my sleeping wife, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Jonas Ward replied the next morning. Adrian, I'd be very interested in having that conversation. Are you free for coffee tomorrow at 10 a.m.? There's a place called The Grinding Stone on Maple Street. Quiet, good for private discussions. Looking forward to meeting you, Jonas. I showed up 15 minutes early, my nerves taut as wire. The Grinding Stone was exactly as Jonas described. A hole-in-the-wall coffee shop with mismatched furniture, and the kind of atmosphere that discouraged lingering. Perfect. Jonas arrived exactly on time. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with graying temples and the kind of steady gaze that suggested someone who'd seen difficult things and survived. He shook my hand firmly and gestured toward a table in the back corner. Thank you for meeting me, I said, once we'd both sat down with our coffees. Thank you for reaching out. Jonas studied me with open curiosity. I'll be honest. Adrian, when I saw your email, my first thought was that Celine had sent you to test me somehow. But something in the wording made me think that wasn't the case. It's not. I pulled out my laptop, opened it, and turned it toward him. I need to show you something. But first, I need to know. When you left Summit, did you sign an NDA? I did. A very aggressive one. I'm not supposed to discuss Celine's business practices or the reasons for our separation. But if someone else discovered those reasons independently and chose to share them with me, that wouldn't be a violation on my part. Would it? I slid the laptop across the table. I think you should see this. I watched Jonas's face as he read through the files. His expression shifted from curiosity to recognition to quiet fury. When he finally looked up, his eyes were hard. Where did you get this? Someone who's tired of watching Celine break the law. I'd promised Clarissa I wouldn't name her. Someone who kept meticulous records. This is. Jonas sat back, running a hand through his hair. This is what I suspected when I left. What I couldn't prove. She's been doing this the entire time? According to those files, yes. And it's gotten worse. She's setting up a fake debt scheme right now, planning to claim Summit owes $500,000 to a shell company so she can claim financial hardship in our divorce. She's divorcing you? She's planning to. I overheard her discussing it with her boyfriend. The word tasted bitter. She's going to take everything, including full custody of our daughter, and leave me with nothing. Jonas was quiet for a moment. Then, what do you want from me, Adrian? This was the moment, the point of commitment. I want you to compete with her, I said. I want you to build Horizon into the practice. It should be the practice Summit would be, if it were actually ethical. And I want to help you do it. Help. How? Money. Investment capital. I have access to significant funds. I didn't elaborate. Enough to fully equip your practice, hire top staff, run a marketing campaign that would make Summit look like a small-town operation. Within a year, you could be the premier dental practice in this city. And in exchange, you let me be a silent investor. No involvement in operations. No public connection to the practice. Just financial backing in return for minority stake in the business. I paused. And you take Celine's market share. You don't compete, you dominate. Jonas smiled slowly. It wasn't a kind smile. You want me to destroy Summit. I want you to succeed on your own merits. If that happens to destroy Summit in the process. I shrugged. That's just business. He laughed a sharp, surprised sound. You know what? When we were partners, Celine used to talk about you. How sweet you were. How passive. How you'd never amount to anything because you didn't have killer instinct. He extended his hand across the table. Turns out she was wrong. I'm in. We shook on it. Two men, bound by a mutual enemy and a shared vision of justice. The transformation of Horizon Dental took 4 months. I funneled $5 million into the practice through a carefully structured investment vehicle that kept my name nowhere near the paperwork. Lydia's lottery win provided the perfect cover. She was helping Jonas as a favor to an old friend, investing in local business, diversifying her portfolio. All perfectly legitimate, all completely divorced from me. Jonas used the money brilliantly. He leased a stunning space downtown, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern design. He recruited 3 associates, all young and talented, all eager to work with a practitioner known for his integrity. He invested in cutting-edge technology, 3D imaging systems, same-day crown fabrication, sedation dentistry options that Summit didn't offer. But more than that, he invested in people. He hired away Summit's best hygienist by offering better pay and benefits. He brought on a practice manager who immediately streamlined operations. He launched a marketing campaign that was everything Celine's had been, but warmer, more human. The tagline was perfect. Horizon Dental, where excellence meets ethics. It was a subtle dig, but effective. Within weeks, I started hearing about patients switching. Then more patients. Then longtime Summit clients were asking their friends about that new practice downtown with the incredible service. Selene noticed, of course. There's a new competitor, she said one night in February, her voice tight with irritation. We were eating a silent dinner while Mila did homework at the kitchen counter. Horizon Dental, they've been poaching our patients. That's too bad, I said neutrally. Can you compete? Of course I can compete. She speared a piece of chicken with unnecessary force. They're just shiny and new. Right, once people realize they're all flash and no substance, they'll come back to Summit. We have reputation, history, trust. I thought about the files on my encrypted flash drive, about the tax fraud and fake debts and patient billing irregularities, about Clarissa's grim assessment. What Celine is doing is wrong. I'm sure you're right, I said, but I wasn't sure at all. And Celine, for all her confidence, didn't sound sure either. March brought the beginning of the end. Summit's quarterly numbers were down for the first time in 3 years. Not catastrophically, but noticeably. Patients were leaving steadily, drawn to Horizon's superior facilities and ethical practices. Celine worked longer hours, snapped more frequently, drank more wine. She still met with Rylan, though less openly now. The affair had lost some of its excitement, I think, under the weight of actual problems. When your business is failing, secret rendezvous lose their appeal. I continued playing my role. Supportive husband, concerned about her stress, offering to help where I could. She'd stopped asking me to work at the clinic. Darren had made it clear he didn't want me around, probably because I'd seen too much. But I made a point of asking about her day, of being present, of giving her no reason to suspect that I was anything other than what she thought I was. Adrian the loser. Adrian the support staff. Adrian who would be easy to discard when the time came. Meanwhile, I met with Clarissa once a week at the same diner where I'd first emailed Jonas. She kept me updated on Summit's deteriorating finances, on Celine's increasingly desperate attempts to hide the evidence of fraud, on the fake debt scheme that was now fully in place. She's going to trigger it soon, Clarissa told me in mid-March. Probably within the next month. She needs the divorce to happen before Summit completely collapses, so she can claim financial hardship was the cause rather than her own mismanagement. And the IRS? The FBI? Rhoda. Patient and waiting for the right moment to act. They need ironclad evidence, not just accusations. She smiled thinly. Good thing we have ironclad evidence. I met with Jonas weekly too, watching as Horizon continued its meteoric rise. He'd hired 2 more dentists, expanded his hours, started offering specialized services that Summit couldn't match. Patient reviews were universally glowing. We're profitable, he told me one Wednesday in April. 3 months ahead of projections. Celine's losing clients faster than she can replace them. At this rate, Summit will be insolvent by year-end. How does that make you feel? I asked. Jonas considered the question seriously. Celine pushed me out of a practice I helped build because I wouldn't go along with her fraud. She made me sign an NDA that prevented me from warning anyone, then watched while my reputation suffered because people thought I'd abandoned a successful business for no reason. He met my eyes. How do I feel? Vindicated, and grateful that you gave me the chance to build something better. You built it, I said. I just provided capital. You provided justice, Jonas corrected. There's a difference. Celine filed for divorce on April 15th. I'd known it was coming. Clarissa had warned me the paperwork was prepared, but seeing the actual document still felt like falling, like the ground dissolving beneath my feet. Even though I'd been expecting it for months, the petition cited irreconcilable differences and financial strain on the marriage due to business debt. It requested full physical custody of Mila with supervised visitation for me, claiming I lacked the financial stability to provide adequate care. The accompanying financial disclosures showed Summit Dental drowning in red ink, the fake debt to MediEquip Solutions prominently displayed, along with inflated expenses and understated income. On paper, Selene was barely staying afloat. In reality, she had millions hidden away. She served me the papers herself, handing them to me in our kitchen with an expression of calculated regret. Adrian, she said softly, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted, but I can't keep carrying both of us financially. It's not sustainable. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 12 years. The woman who'd planned to destroy me, take my daughter, and walk away with everything. She looked tired, stressed, almost sympathetic, as if she actually believed her own lies. I understand, I said quietly. She blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. You understand? I understand that you need to do what's best for you and Mila, if that means divorce. I set the papers down carefully. I won't make this difficult. I just want to make sure Mila's taken care of. Celine's eyes narrowed slightly, searching my face for deception. But I'd been practicing this role for months now, and my mask was perfect. That's very mature of you, she said finally. I know a good mediator. We can settle this quietly, civilly. No need for a big legal battle. No need, I agreed. What I didn't say. I've been preparing for this legal battle since October. I have evidence of your fraud, your fake debt scheme, your hidden assets. I have a lottery win you don't know about and a network of people ready to testify against you. And when we get to court, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. What I said instead, should I find somewhere else to stay while we work this out? Celine had the grace to look uncomfortable. Probably best. For Mila's sake, we don't want to confuse her. Of course not. I moved into my mother's house that evening. packing a single suitcase while Celine explained to a sobbing Mila that Daddy was going to be staying with Grandma for a while, but she'd still see me all the time. "You promise?" Mila asked, her face pressed against my chest. "I promise, Bug. This doesn't change anything between us. I love you, okay? That never changes." She clung to me, and I wondered how Celine could stand there watching, knowing she planned to take these moments away from me permanently. But then, people can justify anything when enough money is at stake. The next 2 months were a masterclass in strategic patience. Celine pushed for mediation, confident that I'd fold quickly without resources to fight. Her lawyer, a shark named Harrison Marks, who specialized in high-conflict divorce, sent increasingly aggressive settlement proposals. I'd get visitation every other weekend. No child support from Celine, despite the income disparity. No share of the house or assets. Take it, or face a lengthy court battle I couldn't afford. I declined politely through my own lawyer, an attorney named Patricia Chen, whom Lydia had retained on my behalf. Patricia was everything Harrison wasn't: methodical, strategic, maddeningly patient. She never showed our hand, never revealed what we actually knew. "Let them think you're weak," she advised. "Let them think you're going to fold. The bigger the surprise, the harder they'll fall." Meanwhile, Summit Dental continued its death spiral. By June, Celine had lost nearly 40% of her patient base to Horizon. She'd had to let 2 hygienists and a receptionist go. The office building had started to look shabby. The magazines in the waiting room dated. The general air one of decline. Jonas, by contrast, was thriving. Horizon had expanded into a second location. He'd been featured in a local business magazine, the new face of ethical dentistry. The article included a brief mention of his previous partnership and departure from Summit, carefully worded to avoid violating the NDA, but still suggesting that his exit had been principled. Celine called me once in late June, drunk and furious. "Did you do this?" she demanded without preamble. "Do what?" "Fund Jonas. Help him. Sabotage Summit." "Celine, I don't have any money. How would I fund anything?" It was technically true. Lydia had the lottery money, not me. "Your mother." "My mother won the lottery and gave some to Jonas because he's a family friend. I had nothing to do with it." Also technically true, though misleading. "Are you accusing me of something?" A long silence, then, "No, I'm sorry. This is just... Everything's falling apart, Adrian. Summit's failing, the debt is crushing me, and now the divorce." "The divorce you wanted," I reminded her gently. I know. She sounded lost, vulnerable, almost like the woman I'd married. "I just thought it would be easier." Nothing about destroying someone is easy, I thought. That's the point. But what I said was, "It'll work out. We'll get through this." I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. The lawsuit came in late July. Selene sued me for the lottery winnings. Her claim was creative, I had to admit. She argued that since the ticket had been purchased during our marriage with marital funds, the $50 I'd spent was technically from our shared grocery budget. The winnings were community property. The fact that my mother had claimed the ticket was irrelevant, I'd clearly arranged for her to do so to hide assets from the divorce. It was desperate and flimsy, and exactly the kind of overreach I'd been waiting for. Patricia Chen smiled when she read the filing. "She's made a mistake. A big one. She's opened the door for us to do full financial discovery on both sides. If she wants to claim you hid lottery winnings, we get to examine every penny of her finances, including the ones she hid from the IRS. Can we win?" I asked. "Adrian," Patricia said, her smile widening, "we can do better than win. We can destroy her." The court date was set for October 14th, exactly 1 year after I'd overheard that conversation in Celine's office. The symmetry felt appropriate. Preparing for court consumed August and September. Patricia was methodical, building our case piece by piece. We had Clarissa's files, which we'd shared with the IRS and FBI months earlier. We had audio recordings. I'd worn a wire during several conversations with Celine where she'd admitted to the fake debt scheme, thinking I was too stupid or too defeated to do anything about it. We had financial experts ready to testify about the hidden offshore accounts. We had Jonas, prepared to discuss how Celine had pushed him out of Summit when he discovered her fraud. And we had the truth about the lottery ticket. The key, Patricia explained, is that you never actually hid anything. Your mother legitimately won and claimed her own ticket with her own numbers. That it happened to be a gift from you doesn't make it marital property. You can't retroactively claim ownership of a gift once it becomes valuable. Legally, re-em court. Celine doesn't have a leg to stand on, but she doesn't know that yet. She doesn't know that yet, Patricia agreed. And when she finds out, in front of a judge, with FBI agents waiting in the hallway, she's going to realize that her entire strategy was built on false assumptions. I'd taken to visiting Mila 3 times a week under the temporary custody arrangement. Celine was always professionally pleasant during pickup and drop-off, playing the role of the reasonable co-parent. But I could see the stress etched in her face, the way her hands shook slightly when she signed the custody log. Mila, at least, seemed okay. She missed having both parents together, but she was adaptable in the way children are. We did homework, played at the park, read stories. She asked about the divorce once, her 7-year-old face serious. "Is it because of me?" she asked. "No, Bug. God, no. That never changes, okay?" "Okay." She was quiet for a moment. "Daddy?" "Yeah? Are you going to be okay?" I looked at my daughter, her gap-toothed smile and worried eyes, and felt something solidify in my chest. This was why I was doing this. Not revenge for revenge's sake, not even justice in the abstract, but because Mila deserved a parent who would fight for her, who wouldn't let her be used as a weapon. "I'm going to be fine," I told her. "Better than fine. I promise." October 14th dawned cold and clear. I wore a suit Lydia had bought me, navy blue, expensive, the kind of thing a successful investor might wear. Patricia had insisted. "We want you looking like someone who has resources and stability," she'd said. "Let Celine's lawyer underestimate you, right up until the moment we unleash everything." The courthouse was downtown, all marble and echoing hallways. Celine arrived with Harrison Marks, looking polished and professional in a charcoal dress suit. She glanced at me once, a flicker of something uncertainty, crossing her face before her mask snapped back into place. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom as if there weren't 12 years of history between us, as if I hadn't watched her give birth to our daughter, hadn't held her through her father's funeral, hadn't built a life that I thought meant something. Judge Rebecca Martinez called the proceedings to order. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for suffering no bullshit from either party. Harrison Marks stood first, laying out Celine's case with practiced confidence. Adrian Cole had conspired to hide lottery winnings from his wife. He'd had his mother claim a ticket that was rightfully marital property. This was clearly an attempt to defraud Dr. Cole of her fair share of community assets. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Why else would Lydia Cole suddenly win the lottery right before a divorce? Unless it was a scheme to protect money from asset division. Patricia Chen let him talk. She sat perfectly still, making notes, her expression neutral. When it was her turn, she stood slowly. "Your Honor, Mr. Marks has presented an interesting theory. Unfortunately for his client, it's based entirely on speculation and paranoia. Let me present the actual facts." She pulled out Exhibit 1. The convenience store receipt showing Lydia Cole's purchase of a lottery ticket dated October 7th, a full week before I'd bought mine. The numbers matched her winning ticket, her late husband's birthday, their anniversary, the day I was born. "Mrs. Lydia Cole has been playing these same numbers weekly for 30 years, Patricia said. "We have receipts going back decades. The fact that she happened to win during her son's divorce proceedings is coincidental, not conspiratorial." Harrison Marks shifted uncomfortably. "But, furthermore," Patricia continued, My client never claimed ownership of his mother's lottery winnings. In fact, he's received no money from her except for a modest contribution to his daughter's college fund, which he has documented and which was offered voluntarily, as any grandparent might. Mrs. Cole's winnings are her own, and she has no obligation to share them with my client's ex-wife. Judge Martinez leaned forward. Mr. Marks, is there any actual evidence that Mr. Cole conspired to hide community property? Reno. The timing is suspicious. Your Honor, is there evidence? A pause. Not. Direct evidence. No. Then why are we here? Harrison Marks glanced at Celine, who was sitting very still, her face pale. Your Honor, Dr. Cole has reason to believe that there are undisclosed assets in this divorce. We are requesting full financial discovery for both parties to ensure transparency. Patricia smiled. It was not a kind smile. Your Honor, we welcome full financial discovery. In fact, we insist on it. Because once we examine the actual finances in this case, I think the court will discover who's really hiding assets. And then she began. Exhibit 2. 5 years of financial records from Summit Dental, showing systematic underreporting of income, hidden offshore accounts, and millions in undeclared earnings. Exhibit 3. Documentation of the fake debt scheme, including email chains between Celine and Darren explicitly discussing how to manufacture financial hardship for divorce purposes. Exhibit 4. Testimony from Clarissa Nguyen, Summit's head accountant, confirming the fraud and explaining in meticulous detail how it had been executed. Exhibit 5. Testimony from Jonas Ward, explaining how he'd been forced out of Summit when he'd discovered Celine's illegal practices. Exhibit 6. Audio recordings of Celine discussing her plan to fake business debt, take full custody of Mila, and leave me with nothing, including most damningly her conversation with Rylan, where she'd called me a fucking loser, and detailed exactly how she planned to destroy me. Harrison Marks tried to object, to argue, to find some procedural reason to exclude the evidence. But it was all properly obtained, all legally sound, all absolutely devastating. I watched Celine's face as her entire strategy collapsed in real time, watched her realize that I'd known for a year, that I'd been planning. Judge Martinez's expression had gone from neutral to furious. Dr. Cole, she said, her voice ice, am I understanding correctly that you attempted to defraud this court by claiming financial hardship while hiding millions in income, that you committed tax fraud and insurance fraud, that you conspired to manufacture false debt in order to manipulate divorce proceedings? Celine opened her mouth. No sound came out. Furthermore, that you plan to take custody of your daughter from a father who by all accounts has been her primary caregiver, simply because you believe he couldn't fight back financially? Still no answer. Patricia stood again. Your Honor, I have one more exhibit. She handed a folder to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Martinez. This is a criminal referral to the FBI and IRS. Yes, Your Honor, filed 6 months ago with full supporting documentation. Cole with arrest warrants for tax fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Celine stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. Adrian. She turned to me, her eyes wild. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. I can't, I said quietly. Because it's not a mistake. It's the truth. Harrison Marks was gathering his papers frantically, already dissociating himself from a client who'd just become radioactive. Judge Martinez signaled the bailiff, who opened the courtroom doors. 2 FBI agents entered, along with an IRS investigator. They moved toward Celine, with practiced efficiency. Dr. Celine Cole, you're under arrest for. I didn't hear the rest. I walked out of the courtroom, past the reporters who'd started gathering once word of the arrests leaked. past the curious onlookers, into the October afternoon that was exactly 1 year older than the afternoon when I'd stood in a parking lot and decided to stay silent. Patricia found me 20 minutes later, sitting on a bench outside the courthouse. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I thought I'd feel different. More satisfied. Maybe. Revenge doesn't feel the way people think it will," Patricia said. "Even righteous revenge. Even when someone absolutely deserved what they got. What happens now?" "Now, Celine faces federal charges. The state board will revoke her dental license. Summit Dental will be seized as proceeds of fraud. The fake debt will be voided, obviously. And you'll get primary custody of Mila. No judge is going to give custody to someone facing years in federal prison. And Mila," Patricia's expression softened. "Mila will need therapy. Support. Honesty about what happened. But she'll have you. That's more than a lot of kids in her situation get." I thought about my daughter, 7 years old, who would have to learn that her mother had done terrible things, who would have to navigate a world where one parent was in prison and the other was trying to hold everything together. "I need to tell her," I said, "before she hears it from someone else. Take your time. There's no rush." Patricia sat beside me. "Adrian, you did the right thing. For Mila, for yourself, for every patient Celine defrauded. Don't let the ambiguity make you doubt that." I nodded, not trusting my voice. That night, I told Mila the truth. Not all of it. She was 7. She didn't need to know about affairs and betrayals and fake debt schemes. But the core of it, Mom had made some bad choices. She'd broken rules that were important. Rules about honesty and fairness. She was going to have to face consequences for those choices, which meant Mila would be living primarily with me for a while. "Is Mom going to jail?" Mila asked, her voice small. "Maybe. I don't know yet, Bug. The legal system has to figure that out." "Did you send her there?" I chose my words carefully. I told the truth about what happened. That's all. The consequences came from Mom's choices, not from me telling the truth about them. Mila was quiet for a long time. Then, "Will I still see her?" "I think so. Not for a while, but eventually." "And Bug? None of this is your fault, and both your mom and I love you." She cried then, and I held her while she sobbed into my chest, grieving the loss of the life she'd thought she had. It was necessary and terrible, and I hated that she had to go through it. But I'd make sure she had everything else she needed. I'd make sure she grew up knowing that the truth mattered, that justice was worth fighting for, that staying silent in the face of wrong wasn't strength, it was surrender. The aftermath unfolded over months. Celine pleaded guilty to 5 counts of federal fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence, 7 years in a minimum security facility. Her dental license was permanently revoked. Summit Dental was liquidated, with proceeds going to repay the IRS and compensate defrauded patients and insurance companies. Ryland vanished from the story almost immediately, claiming he'd had no idea about Celine's illegal activities. Maybe that was even true. I didn't care enough to find out. Horizon Dental expanded into a 3rd location, becoming the premier dental practice in the city. Jonas paid me back my initial investment within 18 months, insisting despite my protests. "You gave me capital to get started," he said, "but you also gave me justice. The first I can repay. The second is priceless." I used the money to start a foundation, the Adrian and Mila Cole Fund for single parents. We provided grants for legal representation, childcare support, and mental health resources for people going through high-conflict custody battles. I'd lived through the fear of losing my child to a system rigged against non-moneyed parents. Now I could help others fight back. Lydia, bless her, became the foundation's fiercest advocate. She divided her lottery winnings carefully, some for the foundation, some for Mila's future, some invested conservatively for long-term security. She refused all press interviews except one, where she said simply, "I've watched my son be strong in ways most people never have to be. This money will help others find that strength too. Mila adjusted, slowly. She had a great therapist, Dr. Reeves, who specialized in helping children navigate parental incarceration. She wrote letters to Celine supervised and reviewed, but genuine. She asked hard questions, and I answered them honestly. She had nightmares sometimes, and I held her through them. But she also laughed. She made friends. She excelled in school. She started taking art classes and discovered she had talent for painting these wildly imaginative pieces full of color and emotion that her teacher said showed unusual emotional intelligence. She was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. 2 years after the court date, on another October 14th. It was a Saturday, unseasonably warm. The kind of day that felt like a gift. We built sandcastles, collected shells, ate ice cream that dripped down our hands. Mila was 9 now, gap-toothed no longer, growing into someone remarkable. "Daddy?" she asked, as we walked along the waterline. "Do you hate Mom?" "No," I said, and realized it was true. I hate what she did. I hate that she hurt people, that she lied, that she tried to take you away from me. But hate her? She made terrible choices, but she's still human. Still your mom. Do you think she'll be different when she gets out? I don't know, Bug. I hope so. People can change, if they want to, if they're willing to do the hard work. Mila nodded seriously. I want to visit her soon. Dr. Reeves says I'm ready. I'm ready. We'll arrange it. She was quiet for a moment, watching the waves. Then, "Are you happy, Daddy?" I looked at my daughter, at the ocean stretching endlessly before us, at the life we'd built from the wreckage of betrayal. I thought about the lottery ticket I'd won. I thought about the people we'd helped through the foundation, about Jonas's success, about justice served not hot but cold, precise, devastating. "Yeah, Bug," I said. "I'm happy. Are you?" "Yeah," she grinned, suddenly 7 again despite her 9 years. "Race you to that rock." She took off running, and I chased her, both of us laughing, the October sun warm on our faces, the future uncertain but ours. There's something they don't tell you about revenge. It's not cathartic. It's not a clean ending where violins swell and everyone learns their lesson. It's messy and complicated, and it leaves scars on everyone involved, even when it's righteous, even when it's necessary. But here's what I learned. Silence isn't weakness. Patience isn't passivity. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let someone hang themselves with the rope they're already weaving. Celine built her own downfall, piece by piece, lie by lie. Would I do it differently if I could go back? I don't know. Maybe I'd have confronted her that first day, given her a chance to explain, to change. Maybe we could have found a different path, but probably not. Because people don't change unless they have to, and Celine had no reason to change until everything collapsed. So no. I regret that it was necessary. I regret what Mila lost. I regret the years Selene will spend in prison, the career she destroyed, the trust she violated. But I don't regret protecting my daughter. I don't regret pursuing justice. I don't regret staying silent that October afternoon and building a case instead of building a war. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, treated like you're less than you are, you know this feeling. That moment when you realize you're going to prove them wrong, not with words but with actions, not with noise but with results. That moment when you decide, I will outlast you, I will outplan you, and when the time comes, I will outmaneuver you so completely that you'll never see me coming until it's far too late. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, careful enough, determined enough, they're the same thing. Mila is 12 now, brilliant and complicated, with Celine's ambition and I'd like to think my ethics. She visits her mother once a month at the federal facility. The visits are supervised but warm. Celine has changed, I think. Prison has a way of forcing introspection. She's taking college courses, working in the prison medical facility, talking about what she'll do when she's released in 2 more years. I want to be a dentist again, she told Mila during their last visit. Mila recounted this to me afterward, her face troubled. But not like before. Something different. Maybe work with underserved communities, people who can't afford regular care. What do you think about that, Bug? I asked. I think people should get second chances, if they really change, if they really mean it. I agree. The foundation has helped over 300 families now. We've expanded beyond just legal aid. We provide mental health support, financial literacy training, community building. We've partnered with Jonas at Horizon to offer free dental care for foundation recipients. Jonas and I are still business partners, though my involvement is minimal. He runs the practice. I provide occasional strategic advice. We have coffee once a month. 2 men bound by shared history and mutual respect. My mother is 71, still sharp, still fierce. She volunteers at the foundation twice a week and has become something of a local legend. The lottery winner who gave most of it away to help others. She waves off the praise. Money's useless if you just hoard it, she says. Might as well do something good. As for me, I went back to graphic design, but on my own terms. Freelance, selective clients, work that interests me rather than work that pays the bills. I don't need the money, the lottery winnings, carefully invested, provide more than enough. But I need the work, the purpose, the sense that I'm building something. I've dated a little, nothing serious yet. There's a woman, Kara, who volunteers at the foundation. She's kind, funny, divorced herself with 2 kids. We have coffee sometimes, talk about our complicated exes and our remarkable children. Maybe it'll become something. Maybe not. For now, it's just nice to remember what connection feels like without betrayal underneath. I've thought a lot about that October afternoon, about the lottery ticket and the overheard conversation and the choice I made, about what kind of person stays silent in the face of betrayal, gathers evidence, systematically dismantles their spouse's entire life. The answer is a father protecting his child, a person who's been pushed too far and decides to push back, someone who learns that sometimes the moral choice isn't mercy, it's truth. Would I tell someone else to do what I did? But if you find yourself where I was underestimated, dismissed, about to be discarded, remember this. You're not powerless. You're not as weak as they think. And if you're patient, if you're careful, if you're willing to stay silent while they hang themselves with their own rope, well, justice has a way of finding the truth. And the truth, in the end, is always stronger than lies. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, know this. Silence isn't absence. It's strategy.